Welcome to the world-famous Driving You Crazy podcast. This is the show where we talk about all things transportation, anything that gets you from here to there. I'm the traffic anchor and the transportation reporter for Denver 7 News, Jason Luber, and today on the show, I would like to talk about my recent trip, my recent big cruise to California. It was a week-long adventure, family trip with the in-laws to Los Angeles and then cruising to San Francisco and Santa Barbara and San Diego and then Ensenada, Mexico. I really wanted to take the kids to Mexico, so it was good to be able to do that. And I also wanted to take them to San Francisco since we had a Baton trip scheduled right there at the summer of the pandemic, and that was all canceled. We were going to go to Sacramento, and then we were going to Stockton. So at least we were able to avoid Stockton, but I also was going to take the girls to San Francisco so they could see some of the sights they wanted to see. One of their favorite movies is Princess Diaries, of course, and so they wanted to see what San Francisco was like. But since that trip was canceled, this was a good chance to take them and see San Francisco. Now, a couple of things about this cruise. We cruised on our sixth different cruise line. Princess cruises this time, and we've been on Disney and Royal Caribbean and Celebrity, Norwegian, and Holland America. And I have a ranking of all of them, and Princess was number 6, and I think it falls right now into number 4. The 4th spot out of all the different cruise line companies that we've cruised with, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But I first want to get to the adventures. There were some parts of this adventure that are worth noting, and one of them is the flight. So we considered many airlines when we were flying from Denver to Los Angeles, and we settled with Frontier because of even with the price. Adding in the bags and the seats and all that other garbage that you have to add in with Frontier, it was still less expensive than Southwest or the other airlines, and it also had better flight times for us there and back than did the other airlines, even considering all the extra crap you have to buy there with Frontier. And since Southwest still has their cancellation, like nearly every day, I look at Southwest, and they have cancellations, and they have an extraordinary amount of delays that seem unnecessary. I'll look at the Fly Denver site or FlightAware, and I'll look at the list of all the airlines with flight delays. And you might see United with 1, and American or Delta with 1 or 2, and then Southwest will have 14. And so what's the reason for that? It just doesn't seem... So they're having still problems, so it scared me a bit, and so we picked Frontier. And one of the things about Frontier, and it's been coming out recently, is that Frontier has been making passengers check their personal items. So with most airlines, you get a personal item, which they consider a purse or a backpack or a bag of something like that. And then if you have a small luggage, then that's a carry-on. Well, Southwest and Spirit and I think JetBlue, the smaller airlines that charge for everything, they charge for everything. And so if you have a carry-on luggage, they will charge you for that. It's actually more expensive than if you check a bag, and it's more expensive than if you do it, if you buy your bags early and on all these different fees, right? And so they've been cracking down because people have been trying to avoid the carry-on fee by using one of the backpacks, like a backpack, and then packing it really tight if they're going on a weekend trip with all of their stuff. Basically making a backpack into a carry-on bag. Well, Frontier says, we're not having any more of that. So what they have is, right there when you go at the gate, they have this contraption that has sizes. It's this big metal sign and these 2 boxes. One of them is for your personal item. The other one is for the carry-on item. If it fits into the personal item, then it will fly. If it doesn't, you have to pay, get this, $100 because it's a late carry-on fee. $100, which is almost double the price of a checked bag, which was, for me, $56, which still seems a lot. But when you're just doing a couple of bags, you figure that into the overall price of the flight and everything, and off you go. So the gate agents now, and to get them to be on board with this, because I think for so long they just didn't care and said, all right, everybody bring whatever. And so Frontier said, look, we can't have this anymore because people are taking advantage of our system. What they did is they asked the gate agents, hey, how can we get you to check this? Well, somebody must have said, how about you pay us? And that's exactly what they're doing. And so gate agents will get a $10 commission for every bag that doesn't fit a personal item that doesn't fit in the personal item little box. And I have videos of people having to put, and I had to put my backpack, which I knew was going to fit, in the personal item box, and it fit just fine, and off I went. But there were some people that were, again, not here, either seeing the same videos I did or not following online about what Frontier was doing, and they come in there with their backpack that is packed, solidly packed with stuff. And they try to get it into this one guy tries to get it into the personal item little box. There's no way it's going to fit. It barely fit into the carry-on box. And so they made him go over and pay the $100 to take the bag onto the airplane. And when he did that, the gate agents, they get $10 for every bag that doesn't fit. So that's huge for them. That's the incentive. I mean, imagine they catch 10 people, right? They get 10 people. That's $100 extra for them. And I don't know if it's $10 per gate agent. It might be split between all of them, but still, if you're talking about somebody's making, let's give them $20 an hour, right? And then for every flight, they're making an extra 25 or 35 or 40, $50. That's huge for them. Huge. That's a huge bonus. And it doesn't have to be paid by the airline, so the airline loves that. And then the gate agents, at least, it's funny because I mentioned this story to when I went to the restroom on the plane. I mentioned it to one of the flight attendants. They go, well, they don't get paid as much as we do, and so I guess it's a good thing for them and better for them than for us because we don't want to have people yelling at us. Well, I guess you do have to worry about or deal with that, so you have to have upset people yelling at you and saying, what are you talking about? That's $100 that I have to now pay to get my bag that I thought was free on the airplane. But the gate agents say, we don't care, and they were very, very strict about who was allowed, and they made everybody check. And then it was about the end of one of the flights, and they said, "All right, just go on." And this girl was guesstimating that most of the bags were going to fit, but if somebody had a pretty big bag, she made him check, and then there was an extra cha-ching, $10 for them, and that can be a lot of money for these gate agents for all these extra fees. So you just be also with Frontier. They've lowered their poundage limit on their check-in bags, the ones that you check at the counter before you even get to the gate, to 40 pounds. I think 40 pounds is also with Spirit, because I remember flying. We flew a United flight somewhere and had a connecting flight on a Spirit Airlines, which was awful. And I think I was at 43 pounds. They said, well, you're going to have to, because I had one bag at 30 pounds, one at 43. They said, you're going to have to move some stuff out. And I said, well, look, don't I get 80 pounds total? They go, nope, that's not the way it works. And so I said, okay. And I had to move a couple things from one bag out to the other just so they would be both under 40 pounds. So Frontier has done that as well. And a lot of people had not, I guess, heard that memo. And so they were in there with 45 or nearly 50-pound bags, and they didn't have an extra bag that they could put stuff into, so they had to pay that extra fee for an overweight bag. And so that's just what's happening right now with Frontier, and I'm sure with Spirit's going to be doing the same thing if they haven't already, and the other discount airlines. So just be mindful that they are going to try to nickel and dime you at any chance they can. And I guess that's their prerogative. They can do that. You just go up front knowing that you're going to be nickel and dimed and that you're going to have to watch the weight and you're going to have to watch the fees and factor all of that into your plans. And of course, nothing on board is given to you. It's all pay, whether it's you want to get a Sprite or a Coke or a bag of peanuts. All of it is going to cost you money. There's nothing that they will give you on a Frontier flight at all. Anyway, so the flight actually, the actual flight was good. It was good both ways, going to Los Angeles and coming back. We flew to Santa Ana, the Orange County airport, and then it was actually less expensive for me to rent a car. So we flew in on Friday. This cruise was on Saturday, flew in on Friday, and then got a hotel for that night in Redondo Beach. I had never been to Redondo Beach, and I thought, hey, let's just start off the trip on a beach. And even though it was kind of chilly, it was fine. It was nice to be in a little beach town. So we went to Redondo Beach, and that was just fine. And I had a little rental car. You know what? By the way, in some of these rental cars, and I know other cars have it too, that auto stop on the car engine when you come up to a stoplight or a stop sign, that the car engine turns off when you stop, and then it will turn on once you let off the brake again. I hate that. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Why do you hate it so much, you might ask? I hate it because I want the option to be able to go if I need to go. And I guess it's even that second and a half or 2 seconds worth of waiting for the car to turn on again and then you can get going, that just bugs me. And if I can, I'll disable it. It's just a thing. It's just a thing with me. It just bugs me to no end. I just hate the auto stop car engines. They're just the worst. And you know what? The lanes. I thought the lanes there on some of the California, the LA highways were more narrow than regular lanes. I did notice they have a lot of lanes on all their highways. That is for sure. They do have pretty busy highways. And it's really cool. So we had what did we have? Oh, why can't I remember what kind of car it was? But the rear view mirror, you flip the rear view mirror like you're going to do day or night, right? That little flip switch. Well, it didn't make it go for a night and day setting. You flip it up like it's going to go to the night setting, and actually turned on the camera, the rear facing camera on the car, and you could see what was going on in like not just rear view mirror. It was really weird. It just felt weird. It looked weird. It was just a weird feeling because usually when you're driving, you're just glancing up at the rear view mirror just to see what's happening back there. Well, it took me a second to adjust my eyes going, wait, that's a video camera. And now I'm looking at like a TV screen of the back of the car. And it was just odd, so I had to flip it back. It was really cool technology. I thought the technology was fascinating, and it would actually be neat if you get used to it, and maybe actually have an all-the-time camera that you can see like that, not just the rear view mirror. But I thought that was an interesting part of that rental car. Goodness, I wish I remembered what kind it was. But anyway, we did our thing and went and returned the car. Oh, yeah. So the plan was renting the car at the Santa Ana airport, driving to Redondo Beach for the overnight stay, and then taking the car to San Pedro, which is right next to Long Beach, right next to where the port is for Princess Cruises. And so what the plan is to get there in the morning and drop off the car and then walk on over to the port. I was going to drop the family off first with the luggage and everything, and then I was just going to walk back. It's only, 10 blocks or something. So I drop off the family. We actually had breakfast with a friend some family member that lives out there in Los Angeles. And I thought I had plenty of time to drop off the car by 2:00 when the Hertz rental car company would be closing their doors. And I got to the rental car place, and I missed the window by 8 minutes because they didn't close at 2, they closed at noon. Yay for me. Yeah, I missed them by 8 minutes. So it was 12:08, and I'm banging on the window, and there's nobody there. They split. And so I'm like, now what do I do? Because I can't just leave the car there in the street, because they were closed. This was a Saturday morning, and I had to leave it with somebody. I had to have it checked in by somebody, and I couldn't just leave it there in the street because this is an office that's on a street. It's not like a regular rental car place where you go to the airport, right? And so I am there in the street going, all right, now what do I do? So I'm going to have to take this car all the way to the Long Beach airport, which is the closest full-service 24-hour Hertz place, and then drop it off there. And so that's what I did. I had to drive over to the Long Beach airport. And I'm thinking, all right, so I had to be on the ship by 2:30. Ship leaves at 3. It's all aboard, I think, was at 2:30. So now I have 2.5 hours to get over to Long Beach, drop off the car, get a Uber or shuttle, whatever, and get over back to the port. And so that's what I did. Drove all the way to the airport, dropped off the car. They said, you can drop it off here. That's fine. And then I took an Uber all the way back to the port. So it was pretty much a $35 dumb tax on my account because I had to pay for some extra gas to drop it off at the airport and then for the $28 Uber ride back over to the port. So I had that going for me. And it wasn't just me. My brother-in-law also, who had rented a car because they also flew in on Friday night. He hung out with his brother's family and then was also dropping his family off. And I think he was with Enterprise or somebody. And he also missed the noon window and also had to do basically they told him he got a hold of somebody and he could leave it at some hotel nearby. I didn't have that option. And so he left it at a hotel nearby, and then that was good for him. So he didn't have the same, I have to go all the way back to the airport deal like I did. But anyway, so I guess you just have to be able to think think on your feet, improvise if you have to. That was really the lesson I learned there is don't panic if it doesn't go right the first time. Just figure it out, take a breath. There's always an option. Yeah, it might cost you a little bit more money, which I didn't want to spend, but it all worked out in the end, right? All right, so there I go, get dropped off at the port, and the whole embarkation deal it's kind of especially the security part. It's a bit of a joke at a cruise. It really is. You walk through a pseudo metal detector. You put your bag on the X-ray. Oh, I got to tell you this X-ray story real quick. We were in San Diego, and we're coming back. So we have this other rental car situation. So I dropped the everybody off after going to SeaWorld, and I'll tell you about that later. But this it just reminded me. So I drop off everybody they come back into the ship. I have to drop the car back off at the rental car place and then walk back over to the port. So I get over there and I have to go through the security, right, to get onto the ship from in San Diego. And so I put my backpack on there, and I don't have anything else. I have my wallet and some cash in my front pocket, and I'm wearing shorts, and everything else was in my backpack. So the backpack goes through. I walk through. The metal detector doesn't go off, of course. And then this guy, the security guy, looks at me and he stares at my pants and he points to my pocket and he goes, "What's that? What's in your pocket?" And I said, "It's my wallet." And I held up my wallet, and he goes, "You have to go back through." And he was serious about this. I go, "Because of my wallet and some cash, I went through the machine." And he goes, "Have you ever heard of a credit card knife?" I said, "What? No, I haven't." He goes, "Oh, yeah, you could slip those things into a wallet real easy." I said, "Wouldn't it get caught by the metal detector?" And he just said, "You got to go back through." So here I go, taking my stuff back through the metal detector, including putting my wallet back through the metal detector because I didn't have a credit card knife with me. And I said to the guy, I said, they have real silverware and real knives on the ship right now, right? And he goes, "I don't care what they have in there. My job is to keep things from getting on the ship." And I'm like, okay. I was just laughing. I'm like, this guy is taking his job way too seriously. Does he know who? I'm not just some crazy terrorist who's about to take over a cruise ship with a credit card knife. I mean, really? Well, how do you do that? Do I go up to the I don't even know where the bridge is on the cruise ship, how to get there, but I'm going to get up there with my credit card knife and then assault the 24 crew members who are on the ship, on the bridge, and take over. I'm taking over the cruise ship, everybody, with a credit card knife. It was just so ridiculous. It was so funny. Anyway, so you go through that, you go into this big room, and you hang out there, and you get all your stuff, and then you get on the ship, and that's always great, going on the gangway. Getting familiar with the ship is always fun. That's always nice. And as far as Princess cruise lines go, the overall trip was good. It was fine. it's not. I'm going to say it's not my favorite. So the reason I ranked it fourth, I've been on 6 different lines. I'm going to put it fourth. I'm going to put Celebrity Cruises on top. I'm going to put Royal Caribbean second. Disney on third. Princess now fourth. Then we're going to do Norwegian fifth and Holland a distant sixth. The ship was not as big as the last one, the Royal Caribbean Symphony of the Seas that we went on. It was, I guess they said there were 3,700 passengers on board with a capacity a little over 4,000, I think. It's fine. The ship was fine, but it wasn't great. The weather was fine. It was a little cold, but that was okay too. Everybody likes their own ship. And I was telling my brother, who loves Princess Cruises, about the Princess Cruise. And about the things that I liked, a lot of the things I didn't, like the entertainment. Oh, there was this comedian the first day. He flew in apparently that day and got on the ship, and he was all tired, and so he kept talking about how he's so tired and he's not really having a good set and this and that, and he was really, really bad at comedy. And then he started. So this is the 7:30 show, so there's going to be more kids here, and he starts dropping some swear words, and he goes. It's interesting when I say the SH word and I hear children laughing, and he didn't stop. It would actually, some of the jokes, it didn't. The joke that he was telling didn't hinge on that word. He could have used crap. He could have used other words that were funnier. And still gotten the point across and go, yeah, I do have some kids, including some in the front row who are staring at me as I'm using curse words. Now, I'm not some prude, but seriously, there are other ways to tell good jokes. And it's funny because the last day on the cruise after Ensenada, we're sitting outside waiting to go to dinner, and the duty-free shop opens. There's this duty-free shop, right, where you can buy they have liquor there, and they have cigarettes there, and they have some other stuff there that you can buy without paying duty or taxes, right? And you can save some money doing that. It's not something that I was doing, but it's funny. They had some Pringles in there and some other potato chips, and they had some other stuff, sundry stuff, kind of stuff there in that duty-free shop. And I was making a comment, hey, do these Pringles come tax-free too? Because I am not going to pay any tax on these Pringles right here in international waters. And, that's a pretty good line. He could have made a bigger bit out of it and talked more about that being on the cruise, and it could have been more relatable. But he's in there. He's in line buying something. I don't know what. And he's just a grump. He was just a bad comedian. And so the other entertainment that was on board, there was some dance show that was fine. There was some guy who was trying to sing like Michael Bublé, but he didn't. He was more of a Latin Michael Bublé, and so it just didn't work well. And then there was this other singer guy this illusionist. I'm not kidding. If you had a book and watched some YouTube videos, you could probably have done as equal a job, if not better, with the illusions and the card tricks that he did. So there was that. It just, the entertainment wasn't all that great, but it was fine. It was fine. But that's why I ranked it as 4, because it's just, it just all of these things. And dinner took forever. The seated dinner took just forever and ever, a lot longer than it really needed to take. And I don't know. That's why I put it as 4 and not higher up on the list. Hung out at the pool some. We stopped in San Francisco. That was fun. Did some walking through there. Cable cars are great fun. The street cars are pretty cool. The greatest thing about the cable cars is that you're hanging on the side. Now, they won't let you drift off to the side, right? Like you're the San Francisco treat. But you can hang off the side, which is pretty cool. And walking up some of those hills can be a little tough, even for a guy who lives at altitude. And I was at sea level, and still, it's still walking some of those hills. Did Lombard Street, which was fun. Saw the Golden Gate Bridge, walked across some of that. Saw the sea lions. That was pretty cool. And one thing that was surprising is there wasn't as much traffic as I imagine there was going to be in downtown San Francisco. And maybe because the parking prices are so astronomically high, it keeps some of the people out, and a lot of people just use the transit, which is no way by the means quick. I mean, it took a while we took a bus from the Golden Gate Bridge after walking part of the bridge back to Fisherman's Wharf, and then from there we took one of those streetcars back over towards the port, and so there's so many traffic lights there, and the traffic lights take a while, and even on the bus there were so many stops, it just took a long time to get anywhere you wanted to go. Actually, the cable car was one of the fastest ways to get around San Francisco. Chinatown is, of course, super interesting. Went through this one shop, because I stopped and there was a tray, well, not even a tray, it was like a bucket full of dried fish. And I'm looking at this going, this is interesting. And then you walk in and you see all these other dried things that you had no idea they could be dried and eaten, I guess. I don't know what you do with them, but it's always a learning experience going down there and seeing all that stuff. Then we had a really rough day at sea. I mean, we're talking waves 10 to 12 feet, quite rocky, but it's also remarkable how the stabilizers on a ship that large able to handle some of those waves and make the ride not as bad. There was one cruise in the Pacific where we rode 20-foot waves, and it's where you're walking down the hallway and you're running into the walls because it is that rocky. It was a bit rocky where you did, start to fall over a little bit, but it wasn't that horrible. For some people, it did make them a little bit sick. I kind of like it. I think if you were looking at the ocean from the ocean level, you could really see the waves and how they were going up and down. And I think some people were getting a little sick from that. But for me, it was remarkably smooth, though. The modern technology to make those ships not really rock and roll really is tremendous. And that was a full day at sea, too. And they actually had to close some of the upper decks because they had 50-mile-an-hour winds, and it was just blowing like crazy up there. So they took the deck chairs down and closed off some of those upper decks and kept everybody off of there because they don't want people blowing off and going into the icy surf. Then we got it to Santa Barbara. That was fine. Took the tender, the lifeboat basically that takes you from, they anchored the ship out in off the coast there a little bit, and then you take one of those lifeboats to the pier. That's always great. We rented some scooters, went up State Street for a bit towards the Mission. Never really made it because it was a little bit farther than we wanted to go, but saw some great neighborhoods, had a great time tooling around I went to the beach for a little while. Yeah, it was cold. It was icy surf, but that was that was fun. And you know what's funny? Because then we got back on the ship, and just in time for lobster dinner, which again wasn't that great. It just wasn't that great of a. It wasn't that great of a lobster dinner. And I think the security is almost kind of made up because you walk through their little security. They saw that you have your key, which is, they have this was the coolest system. They have these little medallions, these little coins almost that you can wear. You can wear them as on a necklace, on a lanyard. You can put it on a card. You can. We had these watch bands that you put them on a watch band. And that was actually pretty interesting because you could find out where everybody was on their app on the ship because it's always keeping track of you. And then when you walk up to, let's say, get a drink or get something, it knows who you are. And then the person, let's say you're getting a beer, pushes your name, and they know that it's your beer and your drink. And so that part was kind of cool. But the security is kind of made up because you go and you just scan your thing, and then that you're on. They don't really. At least the ship security didn't freak out when I walked on with my wallet in my pocket on the ship. Because at that port they didn't have the X-ray machines; they have it actually on the ship, and they didn't freak out when I had my wallet in my pocket, thinking I was bringing on a credit card knife. I think it's kind of more for show for anything. And then on to San Diego, went to SeaWorld. That was fantastic. It was really nice to go to SeaWorld and saw all kinds of fun SeaWorld stuff. And we were sitting at the orca show, right? The killer whale show. And we were sitting in the quote-unquote soak zone, splash zone, and we almost got splashed. There were some people in front of us that got soaked. I can't imagine with that salt water, that fishy salt water. Yeesh. Anyway, the one thing that did bug me in San Diego, they have these trains that run downtown, these commuter trains that you can ride up and down, I guess, from downtown San Diego to wherever. But when they do, because a train blocks traffic at times and can block intersections, well, it did it unnecessarily. And they would have the crossing arms come down and stay on for, I'm not kidding, like 5 minutes. As the train is right there, there's a station. The train station is like right next to this street. And so the train pulls up and the arm goes down. And so they let off the passengers, pick up more passengers. They're hanging out. I'm not kidding, for like about 5 minutes. And then it starts to roll. Well, then here comes another train because it's going the other direction. And then it's still down. I'm not kidding. It was a long time waiting on the street, unnecessarily long, having those crossing arms block the road way longer than they needed to. People could be making their way, right? But they couldn't because the crossing arms are down. It really was a ridiculous waste of time, but they prefer and preferentiate trains over every other form of transportation. And so that's the way they are there. All right, after returning the car, I made it back onto the ship without my credit card knife in my wallet. We made it to Ensenada, Mexico. Drove around. Actually, I rented a car in Ensenada, and because we were going to go over to the zip line thing. But as we drive, so we get this rental car, no problem there. They ask if you want full coverage. Of course I do, because I'm in Mexico. We start down the highway to go to the zip line thing, and it's supposed to be about 40 miles outside of town. You get into this traffic jam, right? And it appears that the road is basically washed out, and they have some cars and trucks are trying to go through it, but it's coming up to the wheel, almost the wheel well on some of these trucks, and I'm in this little car. There's no way I'm going to try to attempt that. Now, if I was just by myself, maybe I would have tried, but not with my two girls and my wife in the car at the same time. So we see some people trying to go up into the neighborhood up the way. So we turn that way, and now it's turned into dirt streets and turned into muddy streets. And these streets, and these are air quotes when I call them streets, because they are a path where you could drive the car, but you really probably don't want to, because there are so many holes and bumps, and when I'm talking a hole, you could fit a cow into the hole, and so it was quite dangerous. And so we said, all right, well, this is no good. And after getting the cars thoroughly muddied and trying to we thought we were on a main road, kinda, and it was also dirt, but it was following the power lines, and so we're going around the power lines, and then here got another area where the water was just flowing across the road. I don't think we're going to try to cross that. So we just turned around and went back to Ensenada. As it was really not worse. So I have a risk level of those kind of adventures, and so that was I reached my risk level. So we drove around some of those local streets, went back to the main road, and that was all the way back to Ensenada. And that's fine. We had the car for maybe 2.5 hours, stopped at some local tortilla factory, and it was fantastically delicious. I wanted some flour tortillas. They had corn only, and they were delicious, but I wanted flour tortillas. So then we returned the car. The guy goes, and it's just what the rental car, and I didn't tell him anything about the road being closed or having flooded. And we talked to him about, we're going to go out there to this thing, and so he goes, oh, so you came, that was a short trip. And I go, yeah, it just didn't work out. And he goes, the road was closed, right? I'm like, did you know that before we rented the car? Did you know that before we rented the car? So anyway, rented the car, returned the car after 2.5 hours, walked across the street, looked at some of the shops, and, got a little fridge magnet of Ensenada, saw the fish market, which was great, and then back onto the ship. And that's great because that's the thing I love about cruise ships. You can get off of a cruise ship and you can get dirty and you can get muddy or whatever. You get back on the cruise ship and you're back in America and you wash it all off and you start all over again. It really is great. Oh, and one other thing about being in Mexico. I love how you drive in Mexico. There's just a flow, a style, we aren't making this vehicle a larger extension of ourselves and personal space as you do in the United States. In the United States, if somebody cuts you off, gets in front of you, merges in front of you at a four-way stop, let's say somebody goes ahead of you and you were supposed to go and somebody gets you start honking and there's arms up and there's fingers. But in Mexico, it's just more of a flow. You just go. If somebody stops in the lane, let's say there's 2 lanes, and somebody just stops in a lane because they're doing whatever, you just calmly go around it. There's no stopping and honking and the whole thing. It's just it's hard to describe, but it's just more of a flow of people just going to where they need to go without being all pretentious about it. It really is a better way of traffic flow. Now, people do stop at the traffic signals, which is great. Some people went through, but not very many. But I'm telling you, it is just a smoother flow of traffic. And I really do prefer it to the way people drive in the United States. So that was the last stop. And then we, the next day, Saturday, get to back to Los Angeles, get out of the ship, which is just fine. Walk over to the car rental place. The same place that was closed 8 minutes, that I showed up 8 minutes late for. So I get in there, and the guy says, well, we don't have your car, the one you ordered. We do have a Tesla that was returned, but it's still dirty if you want that. And I said, all right, that's fine. As long as it can get me from here to the Ontario airport, that would be just fine. I really don't care. And he goes, well, you're going to have to charge it. And I said, what do you mean charge it? He goes, well, it's at like 90% charged and it needs to be returned 70%. And I said, you're giving me a car that I can't just fill up with gas, and that's my fault to have to stop at some supercharger and waste 20 minutes to charge up the car enough to satisfy. You're not even giving it to me full. And he goes, well, that's just the way it is. I knew I was going to get nowhere with this guy. There are certain people when you're dealing with in the customer service realm, you just know you're not going to get anywhere with them. So you just move on and you deal with it with some other person later. So that's what I had to do. And so this is the first time I've actually driven a Tesla, and it was fine. It was actually braking. That was the one thing I remember about it more than anything, is that when you let off the gas, it brakes for you fairly significantly. And I think what it's trying to do is recapture some of the motion to put back into the battery with the regenerative, anyway, with the regen braking system. I have that on my car, but it's not nearly as stiff as the one in the Tesla. So that was the one thing I recalled. So, but it was a fine drive. It was comfortable. It got us from the port over to the Ontario airport in enough time to catch the flight and make it back home, and all was well. And so there you go. There's a quick explanation, synopsis of the cruise and the trip to California, which was great. And maybe I mentioned it earlier, but this was our 12th cruise on the 6 different cruise line, and I just love cruising. It is just a great way to go. Awesome pictures, awesome videos, and great memories with the family, because it was my in-laws who went. It was us, my wife's sister's family, and her parents, and so it was a great little family trip out there, and so that was a lot of fun. Well, now that you've heard my cruise adventure, I wanted to have a cruise expert on the show, so I booked for next week the editor-in-chief of the wildly popular and helpful cruising website called Cruise Critic. I used Cruise Critic many times in the past, and I even used it on this adventure. Colleen McDaniel, I invited her to be on the show for next episode, and so we'll hear from her all about the cruising industry and where the cruises are from the days before, during the pandemic, now after the pandemic, and see, because it seemed like the cruising is really back to normal. There were very few people wearing masks. It's funny because during the whole pandemic thing, they were really, the cruise industry was really, really strict about where people go and wearing masks and all of this. Well, we would have these elevators. That's another thing. The elevators were really slow, always crowded, never on time. On this, I was on a bigger cruise ship and had better elevator service on the Symphony of the Seas than I did on this one. So you get like 10 people on the elevator. They all pour out. 10 more people pile in. So they're not worried. They're not worried at all about having share. We were all sharing their air, and they just didn't care about it. Anyway, I'll be talking to Colleen next week all about the state of the cruise industry. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you have a story, a cruising story, I'd love to hear it. You can always give me a call on the listener hotline, and I play it here on the show, 303-832-0217. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. And until next time, I'm Jason Luber, the traffic guy. Be safe, and as always, happy motoring.